Hello. Oh, here. Sorry. Hello. My name is Andrew Gilland, and I'm doing my presentation on effectively and appropriately incorporating humor into a classroom. This presentation is kind of meant for anybody doing any sort of public speaking, but specifically, I am aiming for being humorous towards younger children, elementary school level. I'm going to school to be an elementary school teacher, so I would incorporate this into a classroom with 9 or 10-year-olds. So my visual portion of my presentation is, I don't know where I'm going to be. I think it's above me, wherever the square where my face is. It's on the right side of my screen. I'm a 33-year-old gas station manager, so I'm not fluent in the ways of neuroscience. But this article kind of explains the dopamine and just basically like why humor has such a positive influence on an individual and why it's important. So that's the science portion of this presentation. Roald Dahl, in his 1990 novel Matilda, he wrote, "Never do anything by halves. If you want to get away with it, be outrageous, go the whole hog." And what he means by that is it's important, if you're going to be funny, you got to be funny. You have to follow through. Roald Dahl was one of my favorite authors as a child because he was so silly and insane. He was crazy. If you read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or any of his books, the BFG, the guy was a loony. He was just really funny, really silly. And the reason, and Roald Dahl is one of those authors that got me to pay more attention. Him and authors like R.L. Stine or Judy Blume, they would get me to pay more attention because they were so funny, and I would want to read, and that's how I got better at reading. By the time I was 11, I was reading at an adult level because of those humorous stories. So it taught me that humor is very important with just not just in a teaching setting, just in life in general. Humor is important to me personally. And that's just with all my main memories. It really, the more humorous moments really make me retain things. And I have to imagine that it's an effective thing for other people, especially with all the reading I've done for this presentation. So, the thesis. Humor is an effective method in teaching when appropriately utilized in the classroom. So first up, we're going to talk about how it's effective. Like, what makes it an effective method in teaching? McMorris, in 1997, he wrote, "Comedy has the potential to diffuse tense situations as well as avoid or reduce anxiety in the classroom." When you make an attempt at humor, or it can be something as simple as making a silly name or a silly example on the board. It's important that you got to make people laugh while you're teaching, because it kind of creates a bond, and it makes the situation easier. It eases all the tension in the room. Or if somebody's yelling at you and you make a joke and you're actually successfully funny, it can ease the tension in the situation. So in order for this to work, you have to be funny, right? Sometimes an unfunny person trying to be funny can come off as funny, as if they were actually just funny. But the sentence is way too confusing. So, that's where the term dad joke comes in. Your dad's trying to get on your level and he's making these silly jokes, and you're like, "Okay, Dad, that's a dad joke." He's not successfully being funny. It's not effective if somebody says you're making dad jokes. The best way to know that your humor is an effective thing is, the first step is if you hear laughter. And then you have to see if they're paying attention. Those are indications that your humor is an effective teaching method. And if you're making them laugh, then all that neuroscience stuff that's on the screen kicks in. If you're not funny and you're super boring and your students continuously fall asleep and you hate the fact that this is a run-on sentence, because I said "and" like 50 times, keep in mind that there's a whole world of websites and content out there at your fingertips. So Klein in 2017 wrote, "We need not be comedians to make expert use of a funny video clip or image." I've had teachers who have made me laugh really hard, and they are the most unfunny people in the world. They went that extra step, and they found something clever and something silly. Or they were so not funny, and they were trying to be funny, that we still laughed because it was that's funny, you know? So, it can be a very effective thing, but you have to make it effective. And that's where the appropriateness comes into play. So adults are, when I'm talking to another adult, the jokes I'm going to make to that adult are a lot different than the adults I'm going to make to a child. In order for the joke to be funny to a kid, it has to be appropriate. Now, when I say appropriate, I'm not saying to watch your piss words or to patronize the little 9-year-old babies. It's not as simple as, you know, not being lewd or gross. Or when I say appropriate, like, that automatically comes into play. Like, you don't make sexual references or inappropriate jokes about the kids, or that just comes automatically. When I say appropriate, I mean you have to really be able to understand your audience. If you're talking to a room full of 9-year-olds, you have to have empathy, and you have to be sensitive enough to understand what those kids think are funny. And when you're a teacher, it's a little easier because you have them for the whole school year. So you can take your time to effectively make them laugh. You can get to know them. You can read their papers. You really have to pay attention in order to appropriately be humorous to those students. So that's what I mean by appropriate. There was an article, Sarah Henderson wrote this awesome article, and Sarah Henderson's article is also where I got this neuroscience article from. But she wrote, "What does correctly used mean? Let's take a closer look at some of the classroom research to find out. In one study, researchers asked nearly 400 college students to document their teachers' appropriate or inappropriate use of humor, their effectiveness as teachers, and how students perceive the humor. The results of the study showed that related appropriate humor resulted in increased retention, while inappropriate, cruel, or unrelated humor did not. The students also discovered that humor can be perceived and appreciated without improving retention. Essentially, the students can think a teacher's funny but not show an improved in retention. So just being silly may get your students' attention but may not lead to better retention. These researchers concluded that for improved retention, appropriate topic-related instructional humor is most effective." She basically summed up everything I just said. Got to be appropriate. It needs to be topical. You need to make it appropriate in the sense that they are going to retain. That's the whole point of being humorous, is making them learn better and getting their attention. So it's not as simple as just letting off a big fart bomb in front of the kids. I mean, you would be a legend amongst legends if you farted properly in front of a room full of children. Everybody would know that you farted, but that's not appropriate. It's not going to make them retain anything, probably. It's going to make them laugh and lose retention, if anything. So humor is an effective method in teaching when appropriately utilized in the classroom. Get that dopamine going with some jokes. Humor is an effective method in teaching. It creates relaxation and makes tense moments less tense. It can also create a strong bond between the teacher and student. While utilizing humor in the classroom, it's important to remember that it needs to be appropriate. Sometimes things just aren't all that funny or comical. It's important to remember that there's a time to take certain things serious. Fortunately, while comfortably sitting in a classroom, there's ample amounts of opportunity to make clever, attention-grabbing jokes. Be silly. If you can unwind and open yourself up, it will allow your students to unwind and open up as well. So, I did it. I did it in under 10 minutes. Yeah, we're good. Thank you. Sorry I went over 10 minutes on the first one. Thank you so much for watching my presentation, everybody. I hope you all have a great day.